Company culture. Most executives would agree that culture is a huge part of the success or the failure of their company, right? But what many organizations neglect to understand is that the topic of culture or sales team culture as it relates to its own separate entity, more so than any other department in my particular experience, is also a key factor in the success or failure of your organization. And I think that's because oftentimes the individual profile of a high-performing salesperson doesn't completely line up with maybe the core value words that you've established for your company and that you're more broadly looking to interview and recruit for, right? And great salespeople's personalities don't have to run counter to your company culture, but you can see how if you're looking for someone who thrives in a collaborative environment, then you're probably not looking for someone who is really great at autonomously and singularly influencing potential clients. Or if you're, focused on finding somebody who values inclusivity and acceptance and equality, then you are, all those are all great values. You're probably not looking for somebody who is fiercely competitive and wants to win at all costs. So this seeming disconnect between the profile of a really great high-performing salesperson and all of those other great words that maybe are the keystones of your company's culture, that can present a couple of big challenges. First, if you've nailed the right profile for these high-performing salespeople and you're hiring a ton of, this great profile, but maybe you've sacrificed some of those culture fit considerations for this particular subset of people, you're definitely going to need great sales leadership who is adept at developing what I call a great microculture in your sales org. That's both high-performing, but also aligns with your company's goals and your company's values, right? And that's really not an easy thing to do for a sales leader. But if you don't have great sales leadership guiding your team, you can quickly find yourself in a situation where you have a sales team that is completely rogue. They've developed their own culture and it actually runs counter to your company culture. And even if they're high performing, you've created a bit of a monster. So the second big challenge is that, and this is actually the more expensive challenge, the more expensive problem, that comes when you have the possibility that your recruiting practices, although perfectly aligned with your company's core values and the culture that you're trying to establish, they end up yielding a lot of new sales hires that add greatly to your company's environment and are perfectly aligned with all of the great values that you've established, but they don't perform at a high rate. And believe it or not, that actually happens more times than not. I talk with a lot of early and growth stage companies who've spent a ton of money building out their sales team, and now they really need to refresh their existing sales team with pros who can get the job done and who can get it done at a much higher rate of productivity. Those are really expensive and time-consuming problems to fix once you've built out your sales team. So one thing I like to do, whether I'm taking on a new team within my own company or helping one of my husband's portfolio companies start up their revenue generating engine, I like to meet with the company's primary stakeholders and identify what exactly are your non-negotiable values. I also separately create what I think is the perfect profile for high-performing salespeople based upon their product and the target audience that they're going to be going after. And then I identify the overlap in those values. And those are the primary things that we want to focus on when we're trying to identify, any potential prospects. I, of course, circulate that with HR or with the people department, as well as the recruiting team and make sure that we're all in agreement on what success looks like in that particular role. And then we undergo the task of training everybody who's in the interview loop, on how to identify the candidates that we're looking for based upon those criteria that we've agreed upon, and also how to root out the imposters. because it's an intense process. And when done right on the front end, it can save a tremendous amount of angst and lost productivity on the back end.